convert your Photoshop into a version that you can import into Scratch, you need to make sure that you are opening the version that has all of your layers over here on the right. If you open it up and it only has one layer, that's your final version. You don't want the final version, you want the one that you called your last name and add. First thing that you're going to do, scroll to the top of your layers. We need to isolate your image of your product. Now this might be one layer or several layers, but what we need to do is remove everything else that is not your product. So starting at the top, you're going to click on the eyeball and close everything so that the only thing showing is your product. Now that layer, I turned it off, but it is actually part of my product. I need it back. If you've labeled them, or if you look at your thumbnail view, you will be able to kind of hopefully figure out what is your product and what is not. So I'm going to continue through. That was my colored popcorn. That's my stripes. That's my text. You also need to remove your background and leave it with a transparent background. The reason we're converting this to something called a PNG is the PNG recognizes the transparent as transparent, which means when you move it over into Scratch, it's not going to have that white background that you had when you first opened up any images from the internet into your Photoshop and it had that background that you need to get rid of. Next thing you're going to need to do is go to the crop tool. There's the crop tool right underneath the text. You're going to click and drag a box around your image, and when you release, you'll have resize handles to make sure that you're not chopping off any little pieces and you don't have any extra that you don't need. So I'm going to move it as close to my product as I possibly can without chopping anything off. Like the move tool, I need to then click the green check mark. Now my product is isolated. Now this is a part you need to be very careful with, because once we save this, if you do it improperly, you are not going to be able to get back to your original version. So I'm going to do a file and save as. Make sure you're doing a save as. I'm going to go down here to format, hit the down arrow, and I'm going to find PNG towards the bottom of the list, and I'm going to call this product, and then make sure I know where I'm saving it and hit save. You're going to get a message. Click OK to the message. Now, the absolute most important step, we're going to close this and not save. I now have three different versions. I have my Photoshop version, I have my final version, and I have my product version. We are still in the Photoshop version. If I save this right now, I am going to lose everything I just did. So I am going to close this. It's going to ask me to save, and the answer is no. Please be very careful. Now, if there is any other part of your advertisement you want to be exactly as it is, meaning like the product name, or if you have a speech bubble like this that you like, or anything else you've applied any fancy styles to, you can go through and do the same process again. So I'm going to just go through, make every layer invisible. The only thing I actually want right now is my product name. So I'm going to click all the little eyeballs. And you don't need to have this part if you don't want to. This is optional. But your product is not optional. Go to my crop tool, click and drag a box around it, hit my green check mark, file, save as, change my format, and this is going to be product name. Hit save, say yes. I'm going to close this, Say no to saving over the Photoshop version. How do I know it's a Photoshop version? It says PSD at the end is its extension. Say no and close it out. Be very careful when you are saving. You don't want to save over the full version so you can get back to it just in case you need it at some other point. Good luck.